The second principle of our Constitution is that ours is a government divided into three independent branches: Congress to make the laws, the executive to execute them, and the Supreme Court, and so forth. You know that. In the name of heaven, where is the independence of Congress? Why, they just lay right down. They are flatter on the congressional floor than a rug. They surrendered all their powers to the executive, and that is the reason why you read in the newspapers references to Congress as the rubber stamp Congress. We all know that the most important bills were drafted by the brain trusters and sent over to Congress and passed by Congress without consideration, without debate, and without meaning offense at all to my Democratic brethren in the House. I think I can safely say without 90% of them knowing what was in the bills. That was the meaning of the list that came over, and besides, certain bills were must. What does that mean? Speaking for the rank and file of American people, we don't want any executive to tell Congress what it must do. We don't want any Congress or executive, jointly or severally, to tell the United States Supreme Court what it must do. Further than that, we don't want the Supreme Court to tell either of them what they must do. What we want, what we insist upon, what we are going to have is the absolute preservation of our balance of power, which is the keystone, the arch upon which the whole theory of democratic government has got to rest. When you rattle that, you rattle the whole structure. Of course, when our forefathers wrote the Constitution of the United States, it couldn't be possible that they had it in their minds that it was going to be all right for all time to come. So they said, now we will provide a manner and method of amending it. That is set forth in the document itself. And during our national life, we amended it many times. We amended it once by mistake, and we corrected that mistake. What did we do? We took the amendment out. Fine. That is the way we want it to be, by the recourse to the people. But we don't want an administration that takes a shot at it in the dark and that ducks away from it when it dodges away from it and tries to put something over in contradiction of it upon any theory that there is going to be a great deal of public howl in favor of that something. Possibly the Supreme Court may be intimidated into a favorable opinion with respect to it. What I have held during all of my public life is that Almighty God is with this country, and He didn't give us that kind of Supreme Court. Now, this is pretty tough on me to have to go on at my party this way, but I submit that there is a limit to blind loyalty. As a young man in the Democratic Party, I witnessed the rise and fall of Bryan and Bryanism, and I know exactly what Bryan did to our party. I know how long it took to build it after he got finished with it. But let me say this, to the everlasting credit of Bryan and the men who followed him. They had the nerve and the courage and the honesty to put into the platform just what their leaders stood for. And they further put the American people into a position of making an intelligent choice when they went to the polls. Why, the fact is, of this whole thing, I speak now not only of the executive but of the legislative at the same time, that they promised one set of things, they repudiated that promise, and they launched off on a program of action totally different. Well, in 25 years of experience, I have known both parties to fail to carry out some of the planks in their platform, but this is the first time that I have known a party upon such a huge scale not only to not carry out its platform, but to directly carry out the opposite of that platform.